Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brad Patton. Today we welcome Elliott Mags to the podcast. Elliott released his latest record, Creator, back on August 26th with Smartpunk Records. Elliott talks about how being homeschooled allowed him time to explore creative endeavors, the disappointment of his band breaking up and his place in the Buffalo music scene, working with M.A.G.S on Destroyer, and exploring a different side of Destroyer with Creator. I really dig Creator, and this conversation with Elliott was a lot of fun to have, so I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of As the Story Grows. If you are already subscribed to the podcast, I would love it if you subscribed on your podcast platform of choice. You can find links in the show notes or at asthestorygrows.com to our Discord server, for our mailing list, or for our Patreon page. And if you think somebody might enjoy this episode, go ahead and share it with them. We had a new comment on chapter 534 with Henry from Boston Manor. Aaron Britton said, I absolutely love Henry's vision. This was a really awesome interview, and the album is absolutely bursting with life. Thanks for that comment. If you leave a comment, I will read it on the podcast. So go ahead. Enjoy today's chat with Elliott Mags. Welcome. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You're still up in Buffalo? Is that where you're currently located?
No, I haven't been in Buffalo in probably close to 7 years.
Okay.
I live in Kansas City now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. It's funny. I just looked back over at your Bandcamp page and it says Los Angeles, but it says Indie Rock Project from Buffalo.
Sure. Yeah. I get it.
It's good times.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You grew up in Buffalo.
Yep. Born and raised.
Nice. What was growing up like?
It was cool. I mean, I was homeschooled, so like I spent a lot of time at home.
Oh yeah.
And just hanging out with I have 3 other siblings.
Okay.
So it's just kind of like just a lot of time in the house. Honestly, didn't have like a ton of like friends, honestly, but it was fine. I think looking back now, I think like I really wanted to be accepted by everyone, but like, I think having my siblings as my friends has made me a lot more selective about like who I choose to hang out with. And that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I was homeschooled junior high and high school. So I look back and I'm like, there are things that were great and a great benefit. And there are other things where I'm like, the things could have been better.
Yeah, there's definitely some pros and cons. Definitely some pros and cons. But I think ultimately, I don't know that I would have like really done well in like a public school setting, honestly. So I think it worked out for the best. Yeah.
Because you were homeschooled, did that kind of drive your, passion for music and this creative side to you have more time when you're homeschooled, right?
Yeah, 100%. It was basically like I was just doing school as like a means to an end.
Right.
I was really just like trying to spend as much time in the basement, like playing drums or recording as humanly possible. But usually for our lunch breaks, I would like just throw it out like a frozen pizza in the oven. And then like, set the timer and then just like go downstairs and like play drums or like try to finish recording something, until the pizza was done. And then we would just go back to doing our work, and I would just be eating while I was doing my work, just because I'm going to use my whole lunch break to just like go vibe out in the basement mostly.
Nice. What initially got you into music and interested in playing?
It's kind of just built into the ecosystem of our house, honestly.
Yeah.
My dad and my mom were both like, musicians or had, music abilities. And like my dad was the worship pastor at our church. And my mom has just kind of always been this like, singer songwriter type, she would always be like writing songs, to try to get us to do chores or like trying to get us to cooperate or get along or whatever. So that was like a big part of like how we were raised realistically, just singing together and, just a lot of like singing and dancing and goofing off. But at some point, I think probably like when I was about 10, 11 ish, something kind of just like clicked, and I was like, I can play drums. Like I know I can play drums. Like I just need to be given the opportunity to sit behind a drum set so I can play it. And I think by the time I was 12, I had tried out for like the youth like worship band at our church, and it was very much just like whoever wants to audition can audition, and I just kind of went up there. I knew all the songs because we've been singing them since I was a baby, and just played them all the way through. Just
Nice.
First time really playing drums. It was just like, this whole thing. And everyone's like, you can play drums? I'm like, yeah,
apparently.
Apparently I can play drums. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I played guitar, but I would just like watch people play drums, and I was like, I can do that.
Yeah,
like, I could totally do that. Like getting the foot, the leg, that was like the most difficult thing to master. But like, I was just like, I could totally keep a beat.
Yeah, I think if you got it, you got it.
Yeah, for sure. What were like albums like as you were like a teenager that like really inspired you? And
yeah, that's actually really funny because, like I said, like we grew up in the church, so like there was a lot of music that like was sort of off limits for us. Like I think a lot of the people my age at the time were listening to like, Blink-182 and Linkin Park and just the music of the time, like the popular music of the time, and like I was kind of a little on the outside of that, like sheltered, so. The first music that I found that really like resonated with me was like Relient K, if you know that band.
Yeah.
Like, Relient K, Under Oath. I think the first album I bought with my own money was this one POD record, and they're all kind of living in this sort of like sub-Christian genre kind of realm, and like that was just like I had to beg my parents to like vet the music so that they could sign off on it. Like, okay, you can listen to that. Like, you can't listen to this, like kind of thing, And it was like, it was frustrating sometimes, but ultimately, it's like I was pretty resourceful, so I was able to get whatever I needed, through people at church or whatever, like LimeWire or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you came up through that like Christian music scene and you have that obsession, like your drive to find stuff when you're limited is like so much just like, all right, what else can I find? What passes the test, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah, I was as a kid, as a teenager, I was like, I wouldn't say rebellious, but I was very much like pushing the envelope in my house. Like everyone else was kind of, my older sister is very like, like trying to, get the approval of the parents and just, like typical kind of eldest child kind of mentality. And I'm second oldest, and I was just like pushing every envelope possible, just like, bending the rules a lot, and, when it came to music, it's like, I was very much just like trying to get my hands on whatever I could by any means necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. If you were kind of in that church subculture, was there like, I don't know, church shows you were going to like at a youth group, or like were you eventually able to find your way into like the local music scene?
Yeah, I mean both really. Like there were definitely like, we'd go to like youth conferences, or like, there would be these sort of like mergings of all the different churches like in the area, and they would have like one kind of big like rally or whatever. And so like there'd usually be a band that played there or something, and it was fine. I wouldn't even say it was a show, if more so just sort of like, I don't know, just more so just like an event, It's like everyone's there and we all know the songs because it's just church music for the most part, so it's not really anything crazy. But I'd say like I went to college very briefly, and very, very briefly. I think within the first semester I was like, this is not gonna be for me. Like, and I ended up dropping out. But while I was at the school, I did meet a lot of people. It was my first time really like meeting people that were outside of like my normal setting, and excuse me, it was just like, all these people were in bands, or like they had other things they were doing like in the scene. And so I would just kind of started to branch out from there, I think.
Nice. You talked about recording while you were in school. At what point were you just like, okay, I got to create music and make stuff on my own?
I'd say like 16 was like where things became like, I wouldn't say serious, but definitely like I was taking myself a little more seriously. And I think I really like the drive to, figure it out was there, I wasn't quite at the point where I was like playing guitar yet. I was really just playing drums and just like trying to figure out like, how to play guitar. Really, I knew I wanted to play guitar, but I didn't have like any real like reference point on like where to start or what to do. And I think it was about 16 where my mom sort of dropped this bomb on me, where that like on her side of our family, like we're related to Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
Yeah. Crazy thing to figure out. Yeah. But it was like my grandma, her father is Jimmy's first cousin.
Oh, wow.
Type shit. So it was like very like, oh, okay, well now I have to figure it out. Like,
yeah.
And that was kind of the jumping off point to like learn guitar. And my older sister had already played guitar. She had like a Stratocaster and like some shitty Line 6 amp in the basement she was practicing on. And whenever she was out of the house, I would just go down there and just like jam on it, just trying to like get some stuff together. And eventually I got my own guitar, but it was very much just like in me that I had to do it.
You got this project, M.A.G.S. Was there ever a thought like, I need a band, or were you always kind of just like, I don't know, whether it's being homeschooled or just insulated from an outside music scene where you were just like creating music on your own and not trying to find people to bring into this tent?
I got a little bit of both, actually. I think initially M.A.G.S. was going to be just a studio project. Mm-hmm. I'd been in from like probably 2010 until I started M.A.G.S. in 2014. From those 4 years, I was probably in like 6 or 7 bands in Buffalo. And it was, they all kind of met the same end for the most part. It's like people get busy or things just kind of fizzle out, or, people, their priorities change, like stuff like that. And I had one band that I was in that like started to get a little bit of traction locally, and it just sort of ended very, very suddenly. And it was very heartbreaking, honestly, because, I think for me, it's like I was finally getting to that place that I wanted to be, like kind of in the local scene, and like everybody knew who I was, and like, and like people, I'm not having to beg people to come to my show.
Yeah.
It's like you announce a show and there's people there. It's like, I'm not having to sling tickets. It's like, oh, this is dope. This is super dope. And that ended after about a year. And I was just like shit, like, okay, well, I've put so much of myself into all these different projects, and like, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. So, M.A.G.S. was kind of created out of spite, in a sense, for just, being sort of subjected to these sort of like, dead ends a lot of the time, but I think like as soon as I started putting out music, I started getting show offers, and I was like, okay, well now I have to find a live band at the very least, and I always maintained that I was going to be the one to write and record everything. But, and I still do. But I do have people who, graciously want to play with me and, make my live shows sound good. Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about this project. How did you get connected with Smartpunk Records?
I think that was kind of like a long time coming, honestly. This is actually the first like proper like label that I've signed to. Before that, I was just doing like kind of distribution deals, and kind of honestly just wanted to be independent. I've always kind of had a bit of like, I'm like, I wanted to like own everything. I wanted to just be my own kind of like be an island essentially, but at some point it's like, if you want to tour, if you want to, be a marketable artist, it's like you do need a little bit of help, and Smartpunk kind of came into the picture at the beginning of 2022, I believe. And, I just gotten out of another deal, and, I was just kind of like, okay, what's the next step? I talked to a few labels, but Smartpunk was the one who was really kind of like chomping at the bit. And I could tell that they, like were the most ambitious and the most excited about me potentially joining their roster. And, even when I, met Matt for the first time over there, he was very just like, we're probably not going to be the label that like gets you where you're trying to go, but like to have a little piece of, be like a footnote in the M.A.G.S ascension. That's kind of our place. You know what I mean? Like we just want to be a part of it and help facilitate you getting to whatever your next thing is, and I respected that a lot. I think a lot of industry folks are a little more, or let's say not as transparent, we'll say, and I can appreciate, that Matt understands that like, it's just hard to be an artist and it's hard to be a band right now, especially. And, I think he really tries to create like an environment of confidence with the label and between the label and the artists. And, they've never been, like they've never shut me down when I've come to them with an idea, even with Creator, it was like, I'm going to do an acoustic album. They're like, that sounds great. And they come back with Creator, which is kind of an acoustic album, but mostly just kind of this like kind of freaky, like reimagined like thing. And they were just like, well, this is still really dope. Like this is really unique, So, I think, for them to understand that like I'm just always going to be doing different things and trying different things, and that they support that. I think that's really special and important.
With Destroyer, you worked with M.A.G.S. How'd that collaboration come together?
That was honestly, that was one of the best experiences I've had in the studio, if not the best. I think, as soon as we started working together, and honestly, as soon as we met, because like we've been kind of DMing on Instagram, like back and forth for like a few months prior to meeting in person. And his whole thing was like, he hit me up because he was like, I'm a fan of your music. Like, I'm going to be doing like this new Fast Track Academy program. And I'm reaching out to different artists because I want to like basically do a song with them and use our session as like content for that program. And so he was like, basically all you got to do is get here. And I'm like, bet, like that sounds super sick. So we actually recorded Elephant together on that that first initial session. And like I said, from the moment I got in his car when he picked me up, it was just like we just didn't stop talking to each other. Our brains were kind of just like, oh, like you're like me, and that kind of that energy just sort of carried through the entire recording process. And then after that session, it was like, okay, well, I have to do my whole album here. Like it's non-negotiable. And he just added so much in the sense of like, he just has a mind for that kind of music, really. I came in with the songs about 80% done, most of them 85% done, and that last like 15-20% was like him really just being like, well, what if we did this? What if we structured it this way? Or what if we like added these like accent chords here, and then like him obviously mixing and producing it was just like, I think there's most of me on that record, but like I think when I listen to it, I can really hear like him and like some of his sensibilities coming through as well.
Nice. You just released this new record, Creator, which is the flip side to Destroyer.
Yeah.
Was that always intentional? Did you kind of always know that you were going to have this yin and yang?
Definitely not. No, definitely not. I think when I did Destroyer and I put it out, like I was kind of like right in the thick of some like very personal changes that were happening in my life. And when it came out, I just didn't really have like the space or the bandwidth to like give it the energy and like the attention that it needed, kind of from like a marketing standpoint, I guess. Like, here's my album, you should listen to it. It's like I was just like, all right, I gotta kind of get my life together right now. So you know, I had the idea of making an acoustic album, which I pitched to Smartpunk, and they were into it. But when I actually went to go kind of record it, like initially I just made the demos, like my voice and the guitar, and just like made it really simply, just to kind of get the outline down. And then I wanted to do kind of almost like a bit more of an orchestral arrangement for each song, you know, like that was kind of the original concept. And then I also had the idea to make it collaborative. So I pitched the whole concept to one of the guys who plays in my band, M.A.G.S, and like, you know, he's a bit of a super genius when it comes to, you know, producing and guitar. He's mostly a guitar wizard, you know, like he really has like, I think he studied jazz, you know, so he just has this kind of crazy mind for music anyway. But he lives in Chicago. I flew to Chicago and we like blocked out like about 9 days to make this album. And then within the first day, I think we ended up just kind of, I wouldn't say abandoning the acoustic album concept, but we just sort of like put it more in the background and just started to make stuff that was cool and interesting to us. And, you know, it's like there's, you know, a couple songs where it was like, I think we went in order. We went in order. So like the first song we worked on was Destroyer. And it was just like, it became this kind of atmospheric, like kind of swimmy, like lo-fi kind of thing. And then like at the end of it, like this kind of crazy like drill beat comes in. And when that part happened, I was like, oh, this is going to be really different. Like, this is going to be crazy. Like, I don't even know what this is now. Like we're completely out of like any sort of expectation I had for this. But I think for me, that was like, kind of a cool place to be, you know, where I was able to like let go a little bit of my expectations and just kind of ride the wave, you know?
Yeah. To my mind, listening to this record, it really harkens to like the Garden State soundtrack and like that era of like indie rock, and like Beck at the time was doing cool shit like this. Like that's immediately what comes to my mind. So it's interesting that it's kind of this organic outpouring and not like picking and choosing different things.
Yeah, that's a dope comparison. I think when we were working on it, it really did feel like that. We were just kind of like, we weren't like trying to make anything specific. It was just we were just throwing a lot of ideas at the wall, you know. And it was really kind of like it was me, Ahmed, and then his roommate Micah, kind of all working on it in tandem. And we'd wake up at like, 9 or 10, eat breakfast, and then like every day we would kind of just like talk about what we wanted the song to feel like, or like, I would maybe have like a concept of like, or like a motif is the word I keep using. It's like, oh, this song should feel like this, or like this song, this has always been kind of like the seed of the concept or whatever, so, every day we would basically just like wake up and immediately just start layering a bunch of other stuff on top of those original acoustic guitars. Sometimes we would just mute the vocals too. Like we would just make these instrumentals that were just kind of like journeys unto themselves without the vocals, And then you just like get to a certain point and then you just turn the vocals back on. And you're just like, holy shit. Like, that's crazy,
Yeah, that's cool. What led to the decision to just like name the songs like sequence 1, sequence 2, sequence 3?
Yeah, that was, I think for me, I just wanted them to be separate from the original versions.
Okay.
And I just kind of like picked like a word or a term that just felt like more uniform, I guess. So to call it a sequence, I think it feels like it's just kind of a moment,
Yeah.
like motif is the word I keep using. It's like I probably could have called them motifs, but like I think sequence kind of rolled off the tongue a bit better.
Yeah. Were there things inspiring you from a lyrical perspective going into the writing process?
Not really. I mean, none of the lyrics really changed. They're just kind of, a lot of the songs are just straight up the same songs, just with, a different shell around it. I will say though that I recorded the vocals for this like after I was after a tour. So like, I had when I was writing Destroyer and I recorded Destroyer, it's like I had never played the songs live before. So if you like listen to the different versions, it's like I think Destroyer, the vocals and the delivery is a bit straighter. It's a bit more like it's just straighter. I guess that's the good word for it. But then if you listen to Creator, it's like I kind of figured out how I wanted to sing it live. And I figured out like different little embellishments and parts that like felt good in a live setting. So like I applied a lot of that to the Creator versions. So I'd say like Creator is a lot more how I sing live versus Destroyer, which was more like here's like the original idea, and it's a little more like to the point.
Yeah. What was the inspiration for the album artwork?
That was actually taken by my homie Dan while we were in Pittsburgh. We played a show. Oh no, not Pittsburgh. We were in Philly, actually. My bad. And that was like on the Destroyer tour we did back last August. And I think for me, like when I saw that photo, I was like, I have to use this for something someday. Because I've had that photo just sitting on my hard drive for over a year. And when we finally finished like the album, I knew exactly what I wanted to use for the artwork. So I'm like, I've got this photo. I cropped it in just to kind of make it look like an album cover. And I was like, that's it. Like, no question. I think it really matches the feel of the music too. Like that's like the big thing for me is like making sure the artwork and the music work together.
Every morning, every single day, I woke up and threw my dreams away. Every little thing you need to say, I woke up and threw my dreams away. I bet you guessed I can see the future, but I'm still depressed. Got no money 'cause I'm sick.
Album's been out like 2 weeks now. You have this tour coming up in October. What's the future look like for the project? Just touring and kind of resettling in the new year to figure out.
Yeah. This tour is a DIY tour. We wanted to just kind of like play some shows coming back from LA. I'm going to LA to open for American football in October, which is going to be incredible. I'm looking forward to seeing those guys again. Mostly just to literally see them play. It's like it's lucky I get to open for them, but like just getting to see them play again is going to be exciting. But yeah, we just figured like let's just like book a couple shows on the way back and see the fans and play some of the new material. It's a DIY tour as well. So like, in the past, I usually have gone through an agent or something, and I currently am a free agent. So we self-booked this tour, which I've never done before, but I'm looking forward to like, just seeing how it goes. And, and I think for the future, it's like I'm already starting the next album. But that's kind of the funny thing about putting out albums. It's like it takes all of this time and energy and like resources. And then you put it out, and then it's like, I guess I'll start the next one.
Right. All the songs are, I mean, in this case, they're really old. But even like the version that they live in now, they're probably a year and a half old, and you're just I'm over it. Let's get to the new shit.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, probably next year I'm going to start recording again, and we'll be here doing the same thing this time next year.